Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Ben. I'm a meditation and spiritual teacher, and in today's video I'm going to be dissecting the really important topic of the ego. I'm going to be explaining exactly why we have an ego, what the purpose of it is, how it's developed to such an extent that we're now trying to unravel it, and how you can actually unravel it and notice it in your own life. If you're a meditator or a spiritual seeker, it's absolutely fundamental that you gain a really good understanding of the ego, because in truth it's the very thing that is getting in the way of realization. It's the very thing that scuppers our spiritual progress. So as spiritual seekers, it's absolutely essential that we understand it and can really start to negate it. So I'm going to go through all of that in today's video. Well, we've got an ego. What is the point in having it if it's now something that we're trying to let go of? You know, it doesn't make sense. We're not trying to let go of our hand. We don't say, oh, we've got this hand, but actually it's really annoying, I need to let go of it. Why do we do that with the ego? Well, the ego was primarily given to us as a fight, I probably should say fight or flight mechanism. And it's the primary thing that gives us a sense of I. So if you imagine that prior to having this human experience, we were spiritual beings, we were light bodies. We needed something to give us a sense of, this is my body actually, and I need to look after it. So fight or flight is essential, and not so much now, but when we first started the human experience and we were way less evolved, there would have been many more dangers in the form of, you know, wild animals and other things. So we needed that sense of I, we needed that part of us that gives us fight or flight, so that if we were in danger, if we needed to run away, we had some urgency, we had the part of us that gave us that. That is where the ego comes in. That is what the ego's primary purpose was, to keep us safe, for survival. So it's kind of like the animal instinct, the animal aspect of us. Now, if that's the case, why are we trying to get rid of it? Why are we trying to reduce the ego? What is the point of it, and how is it expanded? Why is it ballooned to the extent that it is now? So I'll go through why it's grown to begin with. So if you imagine that maybe we've had, let's say we've had 100 lifetimes. So that's a lifetime, 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 right? There might be 100 of those, there might be 500 of those. And on the very first one, we were much more connected with the divine. We knew our nature, we knew who we were, and we knew that this physical body was actually just, we were just playing an act, we were just having an experience. But we became so consumed in the world of illusion, i.e. the outer world, and we became so preoccupied with all the new experiences, everything that we're seeing, everything that we're tasting, everything, that over many lifetimes, we actually began to forget who we were, and we became very consumed in the physical world over however many lifetimes. And part of that process taking place was that this sense of I, as we lost touch with our true nature, our spiritual nature, the sense of us being a human being started to broaden, started to expand. So over each incarnation, we were kind of bolstering and strengthening this idea that I'm a human being, I'm not a spiritual being. We kind of lose touch with that over all of these different incarnations. And the ego has been allowed to expand. Now, in truth, the ego is actually a sense of self. It's no one physical thing that we can say, well, that's the ego. The body and the mind and the vital come together to give us a sense of the ego. But this sense has actually broadened as we've lost touch with who we really are. And part of that process, part of that growing took place because we became a little bit greedier. We wanted a little bit more. We became a bit more jealous. And it was all because it strengthened this sense of I. This sense of I'm an individual person with my own personality. That became so inflated that we wanted to then protect and fuel and take things for ourselves. It all became more, we became very self-centered. And so, you know, if we had a farm thousands of years ago and the farmer next to us had a slightly bigger plot of land, we started to want a bit more. We weren't quite satisfied with what we had. We weren't grateful. We'd lost touch totally with the divine and that sense of gratitude. And from a very simplistic point of view, this is the primary reason why the ego was allowed to grow and how it began to expand and expand and expand over each next incarnation, because it was then being strengthened from how it had developed on the previous incarnation, if that makes sense. So it kind of gained more and more strength until the point where we were so dissatisfied with the amount of suffering that we've gone through, or some may say divine grace, some may say the world as a whole is shifting in its level of consciousness, that we reached a threshold where we decided enough is enough and that we actually wanted to pursue a more spiritual path. At some point there is a kind of light bulb moment and we say, this is not it, and I know there's more now. And when that spiritual quest, it was initiated, if you like, when you first kind of turned in that direction and showed more interest, by the law of attraction, naturally you would bring more things to you. So it might be, you might suddenly read a book that inspires you a bit more, and then you might watch a YouTube video which teaches you and inspires you a little bit more, and then you might have a conversation with someone. And basically, little by little, the spiritual aspect of yourself was allowed to become more apparent, and you were sort of feeding that a little bit more. And what then starts to happen is you lose more interest in the world of illusion, the physical world, and you sort of show more interest in and expand on the spiritual world, and gradually you work your way back to understanding your true nature, what people would call enlightenment or realization. And my teacher made it very clear. He said, you know, we're now unwinding and breaking lifetimes of conditioning. So many people will start meditation, for example, and it's so hard initially. They've got so much resistance, they feel bored, they feel frustrated, they feel jealous, angry, they've got itches, they can't control the mind, it's everywhere, the body's giving them lots of pain and discomfort and everything else. And all of that is because this sense of I now is so strong and actually has had the opportunity to actually evolve as we've evolved. And as we have grew more intelligent, this sense of I has also became more intelligent, to the extent where it is now actually trying to interfere with the spiritual journey to stop you getting to the point of realization. Because when that moment of realization occurs, the ego is no longer needed. And the ego is at a point now where it's so smart that it understands that, and it is trying to do as much as it can to disrupt that journey and disrupt that process of you actually peeling away its layers, its illusory layers, because it doesn't actually have any tangible existence other than the sense of us feeling it. It's very much like fear. Fear is often described by people who have overcome fear to actually be an illusion. We feel it in the body, there's many reactions that we experience, but actually as a tangible thing, when you step into fear, you gradually start to overcome it and realize that it actually didn't have any tangible existence to begin with. The ego is very much like that, because fear is actually an attribute of the ego. If you're interested in being part of an online school, I'll leave a link in the description to my meditation and spiritual school. It's called the Inner Journey School. You'd be more than welcome to join us there. But failing that, I'll see you on the next video.